Hi, everybody. I'm Bianca Della Garza, and you have to check out Gene Valentino's Grassroots Truthscast podcast. I was a guest. He has the best guests always. Check him out.
With breaking news and political commentary from a public servant, serial entrepreneur, community leader, philanthropist, and American patriot, and a darn nice guy, it's time for the Grassroots Truthcast and your host, Gene Valentino.
Hi, friends. Gene Valentino, and welcome to another episode of Gene Valentino's Grassroots Truthcast. We're pitching Bianca Della Garza's book, Incoming. Bianca is someone I've come to know. She is a host. She is a co-anchor. She is an anchor and a deep dive journalist that is the focus of this week's podcast with Bianca Della Garza. Thanks for joining us, Bianca.
Oh, Gene, it's great to be here. Big fan of your work as well, and always love it when you can join me on NEWSMAX.
Thank you. And we're going to do a deep dive with Bianca right after this.
Because of your overwhelming support, our $14.88 MyPillow has been one of the biggest sales in MyPillow history. I couldn't think of a better way to say thank you than to extend our wholesale pricing through Christmas. Get a classic standard MyPillow for only $14.88. Upgrade to a queen size, just $18.88. King size, only $1 more. Get my body pillows for only $29.88. And ready? Multi-use MyPillows, only $9.88. It's perfect time to stock up for Christmas gifts for everyone on your list. Go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our wholesale pricing, including my classic standard MyPillows, only $14.88. But that's not all. I'm so confident you're going to love our classic MyPillows that I'm going to extend my 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2025. Plus, orders over $75 ship absolutely free.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to Grassroots Truthcast with my special guest this week, Bianca Della Garza from NEWSMAX. She's a co-host, a friend, and an author of a great book entitled Incoming. Bianca, this book is what I want to focus on pitching this week for you, and let it be the springboard for some of the other topics we get to dive into that are part of your book, part of your life, part of your journalistic world. What's Incoming all about?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Gene. And I'm very grateful to your listeners and viewers and your time today, because Incoming, on the front lines of the left's war on truth, is a book that, yes, it's time before the election, but its time is also critical in the state of our nation, not just the state of the race. I'm very fortunate to helm 3 hours every day of live news. And after almost 30 years in the industry, I know that we have legacy media that now functions as propaganda, and they lie, they distort, and the truth is not their goal. And it needs to be called out every way we can, be it here, be it other interviews you do. And my book is sort of getting to the heart of how I've been able to have a front row seat to the most volatile chapter in recent political American history, and how it is all playing out, and how I do have hope for the future.
And so do I. I really believe, Bianca, that you have touched on something that's really missing in journalism today. My dad was an NBC News correspondent from days gone by, and with a Mutual News radio network. And I never got into journalism in my earlier years, but what I learned from him was that you better have a second source. You better be credible. You better make sure that whatever you're coming out with is documentable and justifiable and germane and not salacious. What I find most interesting about your book, which you touch on, is that the media seems to have a different purpose today. They're not working with independent and objective intentions. They seem to be agents for a deep state narrative that's coming out. What say you?
Well, I love that your dad sort of was in the old school, which
Yeah.
I feel like I'm old school, maybe old soul, because I got into journalism with that same ethos. And you would never put something on without a second source, back it up if you don't have the source. My first chapter, the way I start the book is when I attended the White House Correspondents' Dinner, Gene, and it's called The Legacy Media Lion's Den. And it's a good place to start because it's where I kind of set up how this is an elite club. The journalists today, and I use them with air quotes, um, they're not there. They like being part of this elite club and they don't want to lose their status, their privilege. And if you are exposing corruption and asking difficult questions, man, you're going to get tossed out pretty darn fast. So they in turn don't ask tough questions. They do what their overlords at the network want them to do. It is human self-preservation to a point. But the infection and the rot at our industry level is so pervasive now, that you have people who will turn against, and I do believe it's because they hate Donald Trump. They know he's a threat to everything they have been pulling and running, but they will do it and know in their heart of hearts it's just not true. How you sleep at night, how you don't have a moral compass to actually just promote, lies. That is something I can't get my arms around, but I know they're doing it and they're doing it pretty well. And they almost did it to the point where they had Joe Biden at the top of the ticket, but they couldn't get it. That was so close for them. They had to put Kamala in. And now I think they see how bad of a decision it really was.
I see also that the White House has really, it's not just a deep state from actors or bad actors outside of government. The bad actors are from within government too. And your intention to be objective and truthful and daring has caused you some problems. You've been admonished, you've been criticized, you've been challenged by many of our colleagues, I'll say our colleagues in the media, that resent your objective opinion. And, because it's objective, you must be a MAGA right-winger. Instead of posturing to try to bring out both sides of a story, they immediately label you the other side. Agree?
Well, I really haven't felt too much, or maybe I just don't pay attention to it, of
Okay.
blowback or criticism from my colleagues. I feel like I'm more on the side of calling them out for their games, and I'm doing it on behalf of the American people. They don't get to hold the microphone. They don't get to sit on a studio set and ask these questions. What I do is all for the pure purpose of getting facts and information and the truth to Americans. If people have a problem with that, so be it. They shouldn't be in this profession. They shouldn't purport to be in this profession. I haven't really felt, again, maybe it's just the way I was raised by a very strong single mother. And, I got into this profession because I loved it and I still love it. So I don't really worry about detractors. I don't worry about critics because I know I'm on the right side of this. What I do worry about is that we have a very important election. Our nation, the future of it could be vastly different depending on which way it goes. And I worry about for my 18-year-old daughter, if we have a functioning, fair, and free press, so we can continue to have a civilization that will support American values, that will protect American children, that will allow people to thrive and prosper, because right now they're not. They're hurting. And the people who are in power are trying to pretend that they haven't caused every single one of their hardships. And we know, Gene, that they have.
Oh, yes, indeed. In fact, folks, her book, you've got to look for it on Amazon and elsewhere. She can pitch it in a second. But it's called Incoming: On the Front Lines of the Left's War on Truth. The left's war, not only with folks in the media who she's taken on, but people around, well, you define the deep state. It's pervasive. So much of journalism has changed, Bianca, in the course of your career, in the course of mine. It used to be a truly balanced effort. Now you find yourself taking on some of these crazies in journalism that sit next to you, whether it's in a White House briefing, in the White House long, in the halls of Congress, or on the border, which we've seen you report on recently with J.D. Vance. Is the issue as pervasive as it appears to be?
It is. It is. I think there in my book, I talk about, especially with the border, when I worked in San Diego, my first job was in Albany, New York, and I covered the state capital. George Pataki was governor then. And from there, I went to San Diego to cover the border and other wild stories in Southern California for KGTV. And the border was busy. I interviewed coyotes, cartels at the time, but you never saw the sheer number of people crossing. One of my investigations was about workers who were being crossed the border and being locked into a warehouse in San Diego, and cheap labor, also very dangerous for the folks who are coming across. And that sweatshop, if you will, was closed down by the feds after our report, and we won an award from the San Diego Press Club on that. And I knew that the border was an issue when I started with NEWSMAX, and I went down to Roma, Texas, and I saw it for my own eyes, the masses of humanities and the Border Patrol agents who really have just been relegated into processing agents, card tables set up. They're just taking these people that are coming in, the masses. We don't know who they are. And there's no vetting happening. We talk about this, but it took a while for anyone to even start in the mainstream media putting this as an issue, and they still don't take it seriously. The Tren de Aragua, the transnational prison gang from Venezuela, they weren't really in our country a few years ago, Gene. And, when you sit there and you have Martha Raddatz saying, well, they've only taken over a few apartment complexes. This is a gang, a prison gang. They should not be taking over any. And you mentioned JD, when JD and I were at a very notorious stretch of the border in Arizona called Montezuma Pass. We were about to start our interview. And then I hear all these helicopters, and when you're doing an interview, you have all this sound, and you have these microphones, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And he alerted me that there was drones flying above us that had come over from the Mexican side. And they were, there was a group of people approaching the border. And this was about 2 weeks after Butler. So, we're still sort of in this, assassination attempt, sort of, kind of, grasping with this and understanding the gravity of how close Donald Trump came to losing his life. And now we're sitting here and there's nothing we can do. So the vice presidential candidate can be surveilled by a drone from Mexico here in the United States. And our agents are not able to do anything. And as one agent told me later off the record, he said, I wouldn't have done that interview there. That's a really bad stretch because the border wall ends. And he's like, they put trucks up. He's like, that wasn't for a photo op. That was because there's holes in the wall. And if someone had a gun, they could have. He goes, you guys most very well likely were in a scope of somebody on the other side. Yeah. So it really points to the fact of like, these people want to do bad things. And for the radical Democratic Party to, let's say, do they care about kids? Do they care about, what about all the kids that are being sold into sex trafficking? 320,000 missing kids. So it's a national security problem. It's a problem with humanity, and it's a problem with drugs. We know that, but they're actually moving so many people over the border. They don't even need to move drugs. And one thing that we have Marsha Blackburn on a lot, great senator from Tennessee. She had a bill where if there was a child with an adult coming across the border, that they would do a DNA test. And Democrats voted that down.
Yeah. Yeah. You're touching on so many aspects of what I hate to use the word deep state, because it's really, to me, a George Soros type perpetration of a fraud that goes back before your time and mine. I submit it goes back to the early days of J. Edgar Hoover. And since then, it's morphed into different forms over the different administrations since then. You and I coming on the scene in the last, 30, 40 years, we see a focus. The Chinese, in fact, think we're worrying about nukes and bombs maybe flying over us and destroying us. The damage is coming from within. It's coming across the border. It's a cancer that's permeating your neighborhood and mine. It's who's that new home down the street? I don't know who's there. Strange people coming in. And that's not a racist comment. It's just strange people coming in that seem to be suspicious by in some way or type. Like, the deep state narrative and what you've attacked in the media is but one chapter to me of a greater fraud, a greater pervasively bad behavior that's underway to take down our nation. What say you?
You're exactly right. And it's a multi-prong warfare, right? It is the
Yeah.
border is one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is the media controlling the message so you don't really hear it. Um,
If I can, what's changed in the media in your career since you've been on board? I knew you came out of New England and you moved around the country in various areas, but
yeah.
what do you notice has been your transformation in journalism?
I went to school at Emerson, which, was pretty prestigious journalism school at the time. So, classically trained journalists from working, in Albany, as I said, in San Diego, so state capital. That was also when Hillary became the senator. So I saw that first coronation, covered there with her. um, the
Coronation.
transformation has been, I mean, part of it, honestly, Donald Trump. I mean, he really kind of upended a lot of things as he's not a career politician. He's not an outsider. I don't think the machinations of this party had ever seen anyone like him, nor will we ever. And it's a threat to all of the things that they have been able to do. As you said, the deep state, the control. They've always been in control, but the acceleration of some of the long game they have been playing, there are truly people with bad intentions who don't like our country, don't believe in our values. And what they've been able to do, and what I've seen just through my, reemergence here of coming back into Newsmax, where we are at free and fair press. And thank God I work for a network where we can express really what's happening, because I could not do this job if I had to work for a network that was not um, promoting truth. I feel that they think that their time is almost near. So I think they're doing things harder. They're doing things, be it critical race, be it DEI. They've put this sort of second generation of journalists out there that have been
Yeah.
indoctrinated. So now it's like, oh, you're rich, you're white, you're an oppressor. It's sort of the victim mentality that they have taught all these kids. If you don't like this, just go out and protest, just go out and demand. You don't really want to do hard work. You want to just go out there and have this illusion of create a protest,
Yeah.
start a revolution. And these kids don't even really know what they're doing. And some of them are placed in newsrooms in journalism. And then you have, BlackRock, you have the funding, and you have these, crazy DEI things that they are beholden to. So now you have this structure, right? And the enemy within is, yes, it is the invasion at our border, but it's also the people who are now in our boardrooms. They're also now teaching our next future students. And that is hard because it's all coming at us now at once. And it's
Yeah.
all culminating into this moment where we know there's a person who, if he gets into the White House, love him or hate him, his values are not their values. His
I'm glad
values
you
are ours.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. When I was a county commissioner for 2 terms here in the Panhandle of Florida, I ran for reelection, and I'd always say to the folks, "Look at me. You don't have to like me, okay? I'm not here to be liked, but I would appreciate your vote. I'd like your vote because you believe I got something done for you."
You're
I
pretty
mean, we're not.
likable, though.
What's that?
You're pretty likable, though.
You're not too bad yourself. I got to have fun or I quit.
Yes, I get that.
There comes a point in this journalism career path that we're all on that I can only be serious so long. If I can't throw a one-liner in and have a little fun, then
Yeah.
fire me. I don't care. I
Right.
got to.
You got to laugh or you'll cry.
Exactly. Speaking of that, how much do we take in the management of our own industry? Bianca, a firefighters union, police union, the bar association, the accounting industry, all have peer group boards that manage their bad behavior. That whether they're fired or not from their employer, more and sometimes more seriously, they may be indicted by their peers. In this case, what form of oversight do we have in journalism of
Yeah.
the bad behavior around us?
It's such a great question. And it is unchecked, but
Yeah.
yet it's the only profession that is protected. We have source protection, we have protection under the Constitution. Journalists do have rights that other people
Yeah.
have and this profession. So if a profession is protected like that, you would think that there would be some reverence to what I do, that I know I'm responsible to people. I mean, this is a civic duty, right? You're rooting out corruption, and you are the sort of the conduit of all this information of how they vote, how they decide, how it shapes their worldview. We are tasked with shaping people's worldview. And so there is no checks and balances, to your point. It's a fascinating subject, probably a whole other podcast we could do, but I would sum it up like this: it doesn't behoove those in power for journalists to have safeguards or checklists. What it does is it allows them to navigate and do things that are completely radical and crazy, because
Right.
they'll go unchecked. They don't want to check for the journalists because that would allow them to be checked. The more they can suppress the journalists from asking questions, the more they can sort of, fear monger them into being kicked out of this club, because it is a club, as I told you. People were at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, fawning over Fauci. They were up, Mayorkas is, trying to we had selfies with him. It has become a rot. There's no other way to say it. Now, where really it gets really, really nasty is there's places like, have you heard of NewsGuard?
Yeah.
NewsGuard, run by Democratic operatives, started. It purports to be this organization that checks to see if people are, real standards. They only say that liberal legacy media are doing real journalism, and it's
Oh, yeah.
economic warfare, and it
That's
gets funding from our government. So the government is funding these things that are policing. So if NewsGuard's trying to say they're policing, it's all dark money. It's this web of tangled
oh,
dark money. It's disgusting, but people don't know that. It's like, Gene, it's no one's fault. We're in this day in, day out. Most people just want to be able to raise their family, love their kids, go to church, afford gas and groceries. This is a lot, and they know that, and they
yeah.
take advantage that people are so tired and also exasperated.
Yeah, it's this psychosis where it's almost like the Stockholm syndrome. If I beat you up every day, the spouse comes home and says, "I'm ready to beat you up again," and he or she says, "Well, what's wrong? You're not beating me up today. I'm not. Where's my daily beating?"
Yeah.
It's like people are so ensconced and into this traumatized pattern that they think that it's okay to deliberate against this nation and this government in the way they have been daily. I got to hit you with this question. It was only 4 years ago. We had a news anchor, news reporter, if you call him that, at CNN called Jim Acosta, who, in the White House briefing sessions that Donald Trump personally attended, recklessly and carelessly and very rudely took the microphone away from the hand person and slammed the president and refused to
I
step
remember.
down after Trump was answering the question. Trump called him out and said he was rude, stop it, give the mic to the next person. Acosta continued with such intensity. None of that. You think that group that you just mentioned would call him in on that kind of oversight? That's my point, Bianca. We need some sort of neutral, balanced. It's not just broadcast radio and TV. It's all forms of print as well, and streaming these days, that needs to step up in a sort of bipartisan way and challenge and somehow penalize, because I don't suspect Donald Trump or any Republican House and Senate would come forward with a amendment to the Constitution that could or should breach that.
You know where they'll get their retribution is in their ratings, and CNN's ratings have plummeted. And
Yes,
that's
indeed.
really it is. It's the pocketbook, right? You follow the money. That was an activist moment that he did, though. That moment was so awful. And
Yeah.
I believe they took his press pass for a little while but it's the same thing now that Karine Jean-Pierre's there. She will barely call on my colleague, James Rosen. They won't call on people that'll ask them any difficult questions. But you're right. Something like that was really hard to watch because Donald Trump takes questions. There's no reason to be that way. He's going to take questions, but he has to move around the room and take other questions. We don't look at Joe Biden. I mean, Joe Biden didn't take questions unless he had a little card with the reporter's name and knew what he was going to be asked. And that should not be okay for the White House press corps. But I
You
just,
you mentioned Karine Jean-Pierre.
yeah.
Do you consider her a loyal American, or do you consider her perpetrating some agenda from the White House blindedly?
I think you give her too much credit. I don't think she's smart enough to enact an agenda. And I say that with, like humility and grace, but she's, it's identity politics with them. They wanted to pick a certain person to do that job, maybe not the most qualified, but everything's about quotas and identity politics with the left. That's why we see all these silos for Kamala, how they want to play it and they want to race bait. Um, I think she has a difficult job. I do think it's hard to go out there and gaslight and lie to the American people. And my chapter, Cheap Fakes, the cheap fake news in the book, talks about how she came out and said this was not really what you're seeing when remember he was wandering off.
Yeah.
And oh no, you're not seeing that. So I have, of course, a sense of that's got to be a hard job. But she's not very eloquent in her speech. She seems to get flustered a lot. And that is a
Yeah.
position. If you're the White House press secretary, you have to communicate effectively for the administration. So there is obviously a better way. I'm sure they give her talking points, but she is not smooth.
Yeah.
She's not clear. And then when she gets really rattled, she gets sort of nasty. And I see that a lot. Same with, anyone when they're pressed, because they have no logic or fact to go on. So then they just get really nasty and then they start throwing it as if you're anti-immigrant or if you're transphobic. That is sort of their way to deflect and obfuscate even more because they don't have answers to their terrible policies. So I think it's funny to watch those briefings because it's just like, wow, shouldn't we have better people in these positions? We're the United States of America.
Oh,
Like
absolutely. Absolutely. And
there's a
we
million other
certainly, yeah, there's a lot of people on the bench looking to do better. Bianca, you brought up such a good point. If you were able to give Donald Trump some advice on the pick of his next press secretary, what would you tell him? What advice would you give him?
seasoned journalist who has asked a lot of questions, so in turn knows what questions will be asked. You have to be in the mind of your opponent. If you're the press secretary, you really are the voice for the administration. And you actually, because someone like what I've seen, I know who these people are. They're savages. These people are out for blood. They will lie. They will try to create, manipulate, manufacture. They'll ask questions that aren't even questions. They're activists. Some of them probably, they're clearly not neutral. So a press secretary for Donald Trump has to understand, if you will, the enemy. Now, not all of them are the enemy, but a lot of them have caused a lot of pain and suffering because their reporting has not told the truth, especially when it comes to lawfare. And I would look at Donald Trump as somebody who has, has gotten past 4 indictments. And I don't think these people are ever going to stop. They're not stopping now. So if he is elected, when there is a new administration, if he hires somebody, they have to understand that they're going in this and a defensive measure. And there's a way to do it with grace. There's a way to do it with humility. You don't have to talk down to people. You absolutely have to have complete professionalism, but you also have to combat the lies in a way that maybe the reporter doesn't get it, but the people listening in the briefing room understands. Oh, I understand why that press secretary isn't answering that question. That's the problem with Karine Jean-Pierre. She can't explain why she's not answering that question. So she gets sort of confused and
Yeah,
lost
she's
because
clearly
she
not.
cannot
Yeah,
she
the
cannot
marching
articulate
orders.
it.
Yeah, the marching orders are coming to her before each briefing, and it's clear to me that she's trying to push the narrative being pushed on her. But
And you
this
can't
is
just circle back. Remember Jen Socket? Well, we'll circle back on that. You can't just be that either. You can't just be sort of a one-trick pony. You
yeah.
really need to understand communication at a higher level, which Donald Trump does. I mean, he's masterful. He's probably one of the best off the cuff, whether it be, on a debate stage, in a news conference. He has an ability to sort of read the room. That
Yeah.
is so the press secretary's job is to read the room and understand this person's coming at me here, this person's coming at me here, and have that protective, deflective shield, but also tell the truth when the truth needs to be told.
So what you're saying is that the new press secretary must be unburdened by the past and 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 be aware of
Yeah.
the current
What was she saying
circumstance.
last week about the constellation in the sky and then, oh, democracy and
Oh, there
she,
you go, being so holistic again.
oh, yeah. I actually liked that word until she started using it. I was like, I can't use that word anymore. I like the word holistic. She just used it over and over. I think it's incredible where we are in this nation. It truly is. I think America has a spirit, and it really does have a spirit of survival, exceptionalism. We're going to see that. We're going to see this. I know it sounds like things are dark, Gene, but I do believe after what we saw in Butler, Pennsylvania, that there was a sense of like, God can move things, God can do things, God is working here, God is, in control. And I really I'm so led by the Spirit as a evangelical Christian. I don't get sad about anything. I don't get stressed about anything. Yes, these are times that are very troublesome, but I do have this optimism that I cannot think that we will lay down and take it the way it is.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, Bianca. We come from the same background, the same roots,
We
the
do.
same culture. And folks, we're with Bianca de la Garza, a veteran here nearly with NEWSMAX. She's on Newswire, Newsline. Go to www.newsmax.com and check it out. NewsMax does something interesting. They break out the day's programming schedule
Yeah.
by each person. So you'll see weekdays and weekends on a separate tab on the website. But Bianca's here with me today to not only talk about her background in journalism and as it relates to Newsmax, but I'm very interested in this book, Bianca, Incoming. Throw out another pitch before we run out of time on your newly released book, Incoming.
My readers will be, it's a page turner. My readers will see everything I saw from my own eyes, covering both the RNC, the DNC, also all the lawfare, and play by play. And insiders really look at what happened with some of the fascinating interviews I conducted live on the air for my shows here on Newsmax. So you don't have to be a political junkie. You can also be a culture junkie. You can be a parent. You can be a conservative. There's something in this book that I think will speak to you. But it is, in a way, it's sort of a love story for my industry that I still hold dear, which is journalism, and my love story for this great nation. I'm proud to be on the front lines of the left's war on truth. I'm proud to work at Newsmax. I'm proud to be an American, and everything that we hold dear, I know hangs in the balance. And I'm grateful that I could be there in these tough times for people. And I just encourage people to read, to have critical thinking, not to lose hope, because we have this. I know we have this, and I will stand firmly in my belief, and I will rest my eyes on God and my faith and my family and good truth tellers like Eugene. And we just have to get the message out, and we will.
I'm so proud of your optimism. There's an old saying in the AA program, Alcoholics Anonymous program, that sometimes things have to get worse before they get better. Sometimes you got to dig a deeper hole and find out how bad things really can be or will be
Yes.
before you turn the page. I think transformatively, we are at that turning point. I know you're proud.
Great.
I'm proud to be in the industry during this transition. The polls are showing a neck-and-neck race. We alluded to it on some of your Newsmax interviews you had me on, but I don't see it being a neck-and-neck race, Bianca. It seems that the poll. I'd like to do a deep dive on the underwriting criteria used in establishing the poll results in the first place, because if the truth be known, I think Trump wins by 15 points. Now, we won't see 15 points. Maybe we'll see 8 points because there will be some election fraud or election integrity interference that many are staving off to prevent from being worse. But in your opinion, I throw out 8 points as a win for Trump. Am I speaking out of school, or am I
I
accurate
think
based on the past?
I mean, I think what I don't want to do is have people think it's a lock and then not head to the polls. Early
That's
voting is
right.
underway, and I think we can't get complacent. We need to know um, the Democratic machine. They have a lot of money. They're also doing a lot of, grassroots ground outreach as well. So it's not a time to say, well, early voting is very positive, and they're not where they were when it comes for the Republican ballots versus Democrat ballots. But I think we just have to all get involved. And if there's people who want to sit on the sidelines or who can't get to the polls, we make sure that we take them to the polls. Every vote
Yeah.
counts, every vote matters. I'm very encouraged. I'm very encouraged when I see, know that 1 million people early voting in North Carolina. These people
Oh,
lost everything and they're so energized. So there are pockets of where we
yeah.
see this, even in Bucks County where McDonald's visit was, we saw the people lining up. There is an excitement. No doubt there is a shift happening as we speak. And I'm not sure, this podcast will run and run forever. So I just don't know what the numbers will be. We did have Mark Halperin on, our political analyst, yesterday, who said if it continues on this trend, it is over and we'll know on election day. But, at that same thing, I think because we just care so much, we have to make sure we all get out and vote. And voting
Yeah.
early in person is a great way for a lot of folks to do it now.
Yeah, you remind me of the coach on the football team. Okay, we're up 21 points, but we're not over. We still got one more quarter left. Let's keep
Yeah.
pushing. And I respect your point very much. I think it's well heard by many. And uh, one of the things we don't have time for in the last few minutes is the idea that the deep state has perpetrated a fraud on the financial side that has gone unnoticed. You focus diligently as it pertains to journalism and the media and the deep left doing their dirty work to promote an agenda on the left side. But if the truth be known, I just got finished reading a book by Scott Walter called Arabella. The book talks about the deep state's billions of dollars fed strictly to the Democrat National Party and the DNC using 100% of that money in 501c4s and not-for-profit entities that funnel money strictly to Democrats, not Republican. So here we are talking about a neck-and-neck polling situation where 100% of the money is going to Democrats. No one's talking about how many billions of dollars went to the Biden and Kamala overnight and their candidates that they're supporting.
Yeah. In our final minutes, I would just say this is why Elon Musk is, such a
Yeah,
threat too.
well stated.
And they
Yeah,
hate to see that. And
yeah,
he's
but
such
they call out Elon Musk when he's won. Let's look at the dozens and dozens of George Soros, bad actors, Mark Zuckerberg, Gates, and I could name you 10 more that have funded Biden and now Harris, and how Biden's money transcended over to Harris. And is that a fair representation?
I think
Uh,
it's all fair. And I think Soros trying to buy all these radio conglomerates and the
yeah,
FCC, a closer look at it is really important because again, it goes back to he who controls the message, can
that's
control
right.
a lot of the narrative. But I think, yeah, it's always been about the money. It's always been about, having enough money to sort of keep these things in play, if you will. My book goes into a little bit of, why the DEI is so dangerous too. And, why you have, like Boeing and bolts flying off planes. And I'm interviewing people who are like, I thought I was going to die. And, people who are running airlines who are worried about having, enough, transgender people. It's like, let's get people to fly planes who fly planes. And so when
Yeah,
you talk about the money of it, it seeps into not just sort of journalism, it seeps into sort of these boardrooms and to this woke culture. And it's a very dangerous proposition. It's a game we're getting into where It is not the American values. It is not, hey, you can come from anywhere and rise in America. It is not that American dream story. It is, we're going to try to, infect you and put our corporate thumb on what you do and scare you into doing these things that necessarily, they're not even good for profit. So when you look at some of the financial stuff, what they're doing is not even, like, the ESG is not even good for profits. So that's why
right.
they're not doing this for profit. They're doing this for the demise of America. It is a whole other podcast. It is a great subject though for you to dig into.
That's definitely another topic for another day. If the plane's in a dive and we're about to crash, I don't care about your sexual proclivity. I'm a pilot myself. I care about whether you're going to get the plane to land right or not.
Amen. There you go. I knew
Folks,
that.
we're talking with Bianca Della Garza, who's given up a half hour of her time today to speak with us on Gene Valentino's Grassroots Truthcast. Thank you, Bianca, for being with us. This final plug on Incoming, please. Go ahead.
It is available on Amazon. We just hit number 2 yesterday, and we've just been out for a couple of days. Incoming, on the front lines of the left's war on truth. And of course, you can catch me on NEWSMAX. On Twitter, I'm at Bianca DL Garza. Instagram and Truth, Bianca Della Garza Official, and BiancaDellaGarza.com. But again, the book is out. It is number 2. And I thank you, Gene, all the work you do. Keep up the fight.
Thank you. Bianca Della Garza, 10-time Emmy-nominated host and author. She's been with me today, and she's got a scoot to catch to get on one of her Newswire episodes today on Gene Valentino on NEWSMAX. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Bianca. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for another episode of Gene Valentino's Grassroots Truthcast. See you soon.
Thanks for joining us for Gene Valentino's Grassroots Truthcast. Be sure to like and subscribe, and God bless America.